I suppose it's about realizing that everybody sees things differently, and I kind of always knew that, but I just had an insight one day when I was driving to see my mum, and I have a habit. I find my mum a bit challenging sometimes, and I have a habit of, when I'm going to see her, going through my head all the things that she might say and do to annoy me before I even get there. And so then I get there in a kind of irritable mood, and then of course she says one tiny thing and I'm irritated. So there was this one day that I was driving along, and I just suddenly thought, why don't I just see it as what my mum intends rather than how it lands with me? Does she intend to wind me up or irritate me when I see her? And I thought, no, she doesn't. Her intention's nearly always good. So actually, if I go with a different outlook, sort of understanding that her intention is good most of the time, maybe I won't be as irritated and wound up. And it works like magic. Whenever I go over there, and I literally don't think about how our interaction is going to be with each other before I get there. I meet her as she is, she meets me as I am, and we have a reasonably nice time and very little irritation. If I still do fall into the trap of going, oh, she's going to say this, or oh, she's going to do that, or whatever, and then it's a completely different meeting.
It reminded me of this part. You are trying to live in a reality that no longer exists. If you live in the past, you can never find happiness. You are trying to live in a reality that no longer exists. Reminds me of what Chris was saying about the story that he's going to tell when he's just traveling at the moment, but he's going to tell us a story when he's settled. And there's no hurry, Chris, don't worry. But it reminded me of his story, your story, and Chris's story, Wilson, because he was saying about it's not his reality now. And to be in a situation where you had a different reality about a situation, and now you've got a new reality, shows that it's not the situation, because you're, regardless to whether you, he was saying earlier that he doesn't put himself in those situations anymore. It's not his reality. And I was touched by that, because I thought, well, that reality doesn't exist to him anymore. That's an old reality that just doesn't exist. And this situation doesn't make the reality. It's you that makes reality. And in this new reality, there can be a different response, or a different experience.
You know what? That's just switched it up. This thing, it's like butter. It just spreads everywhere. It's just everywhere in your life, man. Because when we went Ramby the other day, yeah, and we haven't been into prisons for a little while. And the first time I went back into prison was November, and that had been the first time since I was on the other side. And it was like in one stint, once a month, every month up until March. So I was sort of growing into that, getting comfortable with being on the other side, and still sort of looking at the officers with that half of, they're looking at me thinking what they're thinking. I'm looking at them thinking what I'm my old thinking. But then since we had the COVID and the lockdown, then we went to Ramby the other day for the first time in a long time, apart from Nottingham a couple of times. And I've kind of realized now that when I was seeing the officers, I'd sort of lost all of that old, they're looking at me, I'm looking at them, I'm walking past and saying, hello, sir, how you doing? Yeah, hello. And it just flowed so natural. And like I said, when we got into the office, there's a big burly officer there, stripes on his thingy, tats on his thingy, little funky hair dude, under northern accent. I'm just thinking, yeah, in the back, stereotypical, he's the one that's going to give us the fight. But as soon as he opened his mouth, he was singing our tune, he was saying, and that thought, it just kind of washed away. I didn't even dwell on it as long as I probably would have. But it's the same thing. If you remove yourself from that, if I'm not in that reality no more, but the circumstances are still the same, but yet my thinking just totally shifted. Mm-hmm. I wasn't looking at him as, yeah, you're the one on the other side of the fence. You're the one with the keys locking me up. Mm-hmm. I'm really looking at him like an ally and a colleague, and we're both on the same side trying to move forward. Because in the past, I might have looked at him, sitting at the desk with you, looked at him and thought, yeah, he's only saying that because he knows I used to be a thingy, so he's just trying to appease me, but he really wants this, he really wants to shut it down. There was none of that. We was all on the same team, and just now I've realised that.